The radical left's agendas are attacking your values. But conservatives like you haven't forgotten what this country was built upon. My friends, the Heritage Foundation exists to make sure your voice is heard, to represent your values in the D.C. swamp. The Heritage Foundation stands for your values and won't give up the struggle because they know you never will. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
That. Hello, America. Mark Levin here. We be at right here, Mr. Producer. That's right. Our number 877-381-3811. 877-381-3811. The big question to be answered is whether or not President Xi of China will mention the massive amount of support and blood that the United States of America gave to China in order to help it to secure its freedom from a very unfriendly foreign invader. And by that he means our defeat of Japan in World War II. Many Americans died in China's quest for victory and glory. I hope they're rightfully honored and remembered for their bravery and sacrifice. May President Xi and the wonderful people of China have a great and lasting day of celebration. Please give my warmest regards to Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un as you conspire against the United States of America. President Donald J. Trump. He's right about that, isn't he? Oh, yeah. He understands what's going on fully and completely. President at the White House today, cut one, go.
I thought it was a beautiful ceremony. I thought it was very, very impressive. But I understood the reason they were doing it, and they were hoping I was watching, and I was watching. My relationship with all of them is very good. We're going to find out how good it is over the next week or two. I think that we helped China very much, as you know, when they talk about freedom. And I don't believe that, and maybe I'm wrong, I hope I'm wrong, but I don't believe that America, that the United States was acknowledged for helping China to gain its freedom. But perhaps that was just that was a sleight of hand. I mean, I was very surprised. I watched the speech last night. President Xi is a friend of mine, but I thought that the United States should have been mentioned last night during that speech because we helped China very, very much.
Mm-hmm. We sure did. Cut two. Go ahead.
You've expressed many times your frustration and disappointment with Putin, but there's no action since you took your office. Don't you worry that...
How do you know there's no action?
But don't you worry... Wait. What actions did you take? I'm with Polish Radio.
Okay. How do you know there's no action? Would you say that putting secondary sanctions on India, the largest purchaser outside of China, they're almost equal, would you say there was no action? That cost hundreds of billions of dollars to Russia. You call that no action? And I haven't done phase 2 yet or phase 3. But when you say there's no action, I think you ought to get yourself a new job, because if you remember, 2 weeks ago I said, if India buys, India's got big problems, and that's what happened. So don't tell me about that.
You know, it's interesting to me. Donald Trump is taking firm action, and he's going to take firmer action. He's ratcheting it up, trying to see what kind of response he gets. And if there's resistance with this alliance, and they keep pounding Ukraine, and they keep threatening the West, he's going to keep ratcheting it up. So it's like he can't win. He's got the isolationist nut jobs who would have us surrender to this enemy, all the enemies. And then he's got the media and the left that say he's not doing enough, and yet he's done a ton more than Joe Biden ever did. I mean, ask yourselves that question. He's done a ton more to support NATO. He's doing a ton more now to support Ukraine. He's the one that's trying to step in and get that situation resolved. He's done a ton more to support the state of Israel. He's done a ton more to build up our own military and secure our own border. And yet it is this constant ripping at him. Cut 3, go.
I have no message to President Putin. He knows where I stand, and he'll make a decision one way or the other. Whatever his decision is, we'll either be happy about it or unhappy. And if we're unhappy about it, you'll see things happen.
So we have one group, seriously, of loudmouths who believe we should just surrender navigable waters, surrender the economy, surrender our allies to our enemies. And you know who these bird brains are. And then we have these others who seem trigger happy. Now, Trump will pull the trigger if and when he needs to, but he's not trigger happy. This is what I've explained over and over and over again. He's not an isolationist, but he's not an interventionist. And neither was Reagan. Peace through strength means peace through strength. They're not blind to these threats. Now, some people will say he pushed China, North Korea, and Russia towards each other. Ladies and gentlemen, China, North Korea, and Russia in the last several decades have been aligned. They've been aligned. There's no surprise about it. None. Now, in the case of India, Modi seems to be willing to befriend whomever he feels he needs to befriend, but I don't think he's playing his cards smart. I really don't. He was standing there with Xi and Putin, and he seemed ultra uncomfortable, as he should. As he should, because they were also standing there with Pakistan and other countries that are not democracies. India is the biggest democracy on the face of the planet. China has been a sworn enemy. There may be a period of quiet right now, but it's certainly not going to be for a long period of time. So Modi's kind of out there now and has to really think about what he's doing. Really think about what he's doing. But on the one hand, he's called a dictator, trigger happy. On the other hand, he's not doing enough. I've been thinking about this. It's like trying to help the cities. You have a president who is actively trying to protect the citizenry of Democrat cities, most of whom are minorities and most of whom are black among the minorities. And he's under full-throated attack by the Democrat Party, by minority organizations, by activists. He could step away. He could say, let the blood keep pouring in the streets. He can keep pretending that the Democrats are right about gun control. You have Durbin out there who says, problem with guns in Chicago is most of them are coming from outside the city. There was a report just a few hours before this program that said actually most of the guns are coming out of Chicago. They can't control that any more than they control other sorts of things that come into the city or are in the city. Law and order means law and order, protecting people. And the Democrats refuse to do it. They are pushed, pulled, cajoled, threatened, bullied by the Marxist Islamist axis. They will never be supporters of the cops. Never. Name one mayor who's a supporter of the cop who's a liberal Democrat. Name one. There are none. Their big sugar daddy, Soros, is busy funding prosecutors who won't prosecute. Their judges, who I'm going to talk about a little bit later, are completely out of control at the federal level. They're at it again. They're at it again. You have a federal judge in Boston appointed by a radical Democrat president who, before I came on the air, ruled that the president doesn't have the authority to negotiate or fine Harvard $2 billion, Mr. Producer. Did you see that? It's unbelievable. You have another federal Democrat judge in L.A. that says the president does not have the authority to bring in the National Guard to protect ICE. Got that one? You have another federal judge that ruled a woman who threatened to murder Donald Trump should be released. So he released her, as she threatened with postings online. This guy Bozoberg, completely out of control Obama judge. You have another judge, I should say court, 2-1, 2 Democrats versus 1 Republican. That ruled that the statute relied on by the president from the 1800s doesn't apply. Therefore, a whole slew of individuals who are here illegally cannot be deported under that statute. Now, these are decisions, 6, 7, 8 of them, that have come down in the course of the last 48 hours. And clearly the Democrats. And then, of course, we have the big one on the tariffs. If you oppose tariffs, then your place to go is Congress. Congress. Not the courts. And there was a great piece in the Wall Street Journal by Professor Jonathan Adler of William and Mary Law School, basically agreeing with me in the post that I placed on social media last week and read to you on the air, which essentially agrees with the dissent. That opinion was 7-4. But he made the point, I made the point, that tariffs are not just about economics, they're about foreign policy. They affect foreign governments, foreign corporations, foreign policy, national security. And in many of the cases where Donald Trump has issued executive orders, that's exactly what he focused on. It's not a matter of Congress delegating authority it cannot delegate to a president. Even there, as the professor wrote, and I said, and the dissent said, even there, even then, we have a long history, almost from the beginning of the Republic, where Congress has authorized a president broad authority to make determinations about tariffs. So the president is not acting outside his legal or constitutional authority, despite what our friends say at National Review. He's not. And so there's a debate on this, just as he's not acting outside his authority on the flag, a 5-4 1989 decision, as I explained that decision and the president's executive order. His executive order does not violate the Constitution. It follows the 1989 ruling of the Supreme Court. And what's happening here, the problem isn't the president. The problem is all of these radical left-wing lawyers, whether they have been judges or lawyers for left-wing groups or Democrat activists, they were pushed into the court by Schumer to thwart Trump. And that's what they're trying to do. And they're back at it, round 2. We've had 2 speeches by 2 justices, Kavanaugh and Gorsuch, warning the lower courts, even since the court ruled late last spring, early summer, that the lower courts are not adhering to the authority of the Supreme Court. Why? Because they're radicals in robes. Radicals in robes. And they're not going to adhere to the Supreme Court any more than they're going to adhere to federal law and the Constitution. This is a grave threat to the Republic, grave threat to this Republic. Terrible. I underscored this yesterday. All right, I want to address briefly the Epstein matter. And we have a couple of congressmen, Republicans and Democrats, who say we want to get to the bottom of this matter, release all documents and so forth. May I ask, what is the bottom of the matter? What is it? Again, what is the end game here? Mr. Producer. Let's see, where's the cut here? Play cut 6, please.
I do have to ask, and I know, and it's just something that I think we're compelled to at this moment, with the attention on President Trump, with these questions around a pardon, did anybody see or hear of the president himself doing anything inappropriate as it related to Jeffrey Epstein?
No. No.
Or former President Clinton?
No.
No. These are Epstein survivors that were on Capitol Hill who testified on MSNBC, that's Haley Jackson, asking the question about Trump and Clinton. Did any of you survivors see anything untoward by them? No and no. So what is the end game here? I'm still curious. What is it? The guy killed himself, and that's good. But what is it? We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Conservatives in every stage of life are faced with ever-increasing challenges to our values in the classroom, on campus, and at work. Prepare yourself with a solid understanding of our nation's founding principles in today's most important public policy debates. The Heritage Foundation created the Heritage Academy to help ensure that every conservative from any walk of life has the foundation and the tools needed to defend their values. This 8-week online fellowship includes policy lectures on the most pressing issues facing Americans today, live Q&As to learn from top experts in the conservative movement, and opportunities to connect with other conservatives around the country. Without conservatives grounded in truth and informed on the state of our nation, America as we know it cannot survive. So please go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin, and learn more about the Heritage Academy and how you can apply. That's heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Heritage Foundation. So what is the issue with Epstein that we need to know, other than he was an absolute monster, which we do know? He killed himself, according to former attorneys general of both parties and the current one, and FBI directors of both parties. That's that gap that existed on the videotape. Well, they found it, and now you can watch the whole videotape, so there's nothing hidden there. 3 federal judges in different jurisdictions have all ruled they're not going to violate 6E grand jury secrecy. And I don't know what that would show anyway, other than the prosecution of the specific case in front of them. And now you have the group of survivors who said they didn't see Trump or Clinton do anything. So where are we going with this? Oh, and the latest polls show the American people don't give a damn. Not one damn. America needs patriots who know our founding principles and who can stand by those principles today. That's why the Heritage Foundation created the Heritage Academy, to prepare conservatives like you with the additional knowledge needed to stand firm in your beliefs in a world far too often unwelcoming to conservatives. All Heritage Academy fellows learn from the country's leading experts through policy lectures and live Q&A sessions. Speakers include Victor Davis Hanson, Mark Morgan, Dr. Kevin Roberts, and many more. Fellows also interact with other conservatives across the country in one of 3 tracks: high school track, college track, or the professionals and patriots track. I wish every American could join this 8-week online fellowship. But the next round of applications close on September 21. So please go to heritage.org/Levin to apply today. That's heritage.org/Levin. Join the Heritage Academy to help restore America. Learn more at heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
The Mark Levin Show, live and national at 877-381-3811.
All right, to close the circle, at least for us, the crackpots, the grifters, fake MAGA will keep chasing this. And chase they will. They like chasing their tails. They like chasing conspiracies. They collude with the Democrats. They collude with the Marxists and the Islamists and the anti-Semites. That's their problem. Here's Trump in the White House today trying to deal with this. Cut 5, go.
So this is a Democrat hoax that never ends. You know, it reminds me a little of the Kennedy situation. We gave him everything over and over again, more and more and more, and nobody's ever satisfied. From what I understand, I could check, but from what I understand, thousands of pages of documents have been given, but it's really a Democrat hoax because they're trying to get people to talk about something that's totally irrelevant to the success that we've had as a nation since I've been president. Even if you look at D.C. right now, D.C., it's a totally safe zone. It's called a safe zone. That's a term. It's a term of art. It's a safe zone because it's very safe. You can walk down the street now and nothing's going to happen. No crime, no murders, no nothing, because we had a lot of problems with certain places, and we still do, all run by Democrats, or for the most part run by Democrats. So what they're trying to do with the Epstein hoax is get people to talk about that instead of speaking about the tremendous success like ending 7 wars. I ended 7 wars. Nobody's going to talk about because they're going to talk about the Epstein whatever.
He's so right, and this is why I started the program the way I did. This man can't do anything right, according to his critics. According to the Marxist Islamists, according to the Marxist media, according to the fake MAGA isolationists, he can't do anything right. And I feel like he's doing everything right. Certainly almost everything, don't you, Mr. Producer? I haven't been so proud since Reagan. And I worked for Reagan for 8 years. But I haven't been so proud of a president. I'm just telling you. The things he's doing, the way he's doing them, unprecedented by any president who's had to face what he faces internally, domestically. This massive Leviathan that's been built up to swallow us, to devour the civil society. He's taking it on, and they're trying to devour him. And they desperately tried to eliminate him as a political force, and they failed because of you and him. He deserves our support in these things that he's doing. He deserves our support. You may have a little piddling thing here and there. You don't like this, you don't like it. It doesn't matter. Look at the big picture. Look at the big picture. Now, we know fully who Donald Trump is. Maybe we didn't 10 years ago, but we sure as hell know now. He is a heroic figure. Got it? A heroic figure. That's who he is. That's what he is. Some of us, most of you, see it in real time. We know this to be the case. Others might look back and know it to be the case if we still have a republic. He sees what's going on in our schools, and he's trying to address it, confront it, and fix it. He saw what was going on the border, and he fixed it. He sees the deindustrialization of America, and he's using tariffs, not just for economic purposes, but in order to have a major impact on foreign policy that improves America's foreign policy and America's national security, as well as our allies. By using our economy. Reagan used our economy Trump is using it in a different way. And they're both massively successful and massively under attack. And Trump more than anybody. Trump more than anybody. We are being undermined by an enemy within that uses third world tactics, that tried to put him in prison, that tried to destroy his businesses, that tried to destroy his family. He's a multi-billionaire. He doesn't need any of this. And yet look. Now, I want you to compare him to Ilhan Omar, who was an America-hating, Jew-hating, corrupt, hack politician. Here we have from Fox News. Representative Ilhan Omar's net worth has swelled to as much as $30 million in just 1 year, her congressional financial disclosures reveal. And I want to give credit where credit is due. It was first reported by this great site, the Washington Free Beacon. Ilhan Omar said it's categorically false to call her a millionaire. Her net worth just reached up to $30 million, an increase of at least 3,500% in 1 year. Got that? Much of the squad member's wealth comes through her husband's winery and venture capital firm. But don't worry, she's against capitalism. Just like Mondami's filthy rich family. Against capitalism, don't you know? Representative Ilhan Omar's personal fortune exploded to upwards of $30 million in 1 year in 2024. The Minnesota Democrat disclosed just months after telling the press it is, quote, ridiculous and categorically false to say she's worth millions of dollars. So don't say it. Even though she disclosed it, you're not supposed to say it. Omar reported in her latest financial disclosure that she and her husband, former political consultant Tim Mynett, accumulated a net worth at the end of 2024, ranging from at least $6 million to $30 million. Their wealth is derived almost entirely from the value of Minett's ownership stake in his two companies that together were worth no more than $51,000 at the end of 2023. So if you're thinking to yourself, boy, that sounds corrupt as hell, you're not alone. The exact value of Omar's personal fortune at the end of 2024 is unclear. Lawmakers disclosed the value of their holdings and debts in ranges. Still, the figures in Omar's latest disclosures, writes Andrew Kerr, show that her and her husband's net worth skyrocketed by at least 3,500% in just 1 year. This makes the Pelosi's look like paupers. Like paupers. Omar's extraordinary accumulation of wealth in 2024 last year could raise uncomfortable questions for the Minnesota Democrat, who in February told Business Insider that she's been the subject of a coordinated right-wing disinformation campaign that falsely claims she's worth millions of dollars. Well, that's what she claimed. Omar said any insinuation that she's worth more than a few $1,000s was ridiculous and categorically false. She also took to Twitter in February, challenging her followers to maybe try checking my public financial statements, and you'll see I barely have thousands, let alone millions. Omar has her husband to thank for catapulting her to multimillionaire status in 2024. Minett's California-based winery and venture capital firm both achieved remarkable financial turnarounds in 2024. Imagine that. At the end of 2023, Minett's combined stake in both companies was worth no more than $51,000. The firms had less than $700 across all their bank accounts. And Mynett and his business partner, former DNC advisor William Haler, were saddled with lawsuits from investors claiming they defrauded them out of millions of dollars. But by the end of 2024, Minett's combined stake in the two firms ballooned to anywhere between $6 million and $30 million, and he and Haler settled all the lawsuits with cash settlements, reports the Washington Free Beacon. Manette's business activities have long been a thorn in Omar's side ever since they married in March 2020. They were both married to other people when they met, but the pair began an affair. Isn't that inappropriate for Islamists, Mr. Producer? Maybe not. Maybe Islamists can have multiple wives, whatever. While Manette served as a political consultant in Omar's campaign, which pays his firm a whopping $2.9 million during the 2020 election cycle. Ladies and gentlemen, this begs for a criminal investigation. Hello, DOJ, this begs for a criminal investigation. But that was fleeting arrangement. That for the financial ties between Omar's campaign and her new husband's firm drew intense public scrutiny, and by the end of 2020, Manette had exited the political consulting business and teamed up with Haler to branch out into the winery and venture capital industries. Let me get this straight. So the guy's broke. They got all these lawsuits. He's a political consultant. Then he becomes a multimillionaire. He sells his business, and now he's in the winery and venture capital industries. Wow, this guy's got quite a Renaissance background, doesn't he, Rich? Manette's stake in his California winery was worth no more than $50,000 at the end of 2023. Omar disclosed. The winery had just $650 in its bank account in February 2024, according to court documents obtained by the Minnesota Reformer, and was facing a lawsuit from Washington, D.C. businessman Naeem Mad, alleging Manette and Haler failed to pay up after promising to triple his $300,000 investment in the winery in just 18 months. Now, Mode filed the suit in California against Manette and Haler in 2023, seeking $780,000, that is, in damages. He filed a motion to drop the suit in November 24 after reaching a settlement with the winery, the Free Beacon has learned. We did settle and the amount was paid, his attorney, Faisal Gill, told the Free Beacon. Gill declined to share the exact amount of the settlement. Manette and Haler did not return requests for comment. But Manette, remember the husband of Omar, Manette and Haler formed Rose Lake Capital in 2022. Claims on its website to have $60 billion in assets under management and boasts an extensive global network and expertise at structuring legislation. Ooh, imagine. The firm's advisory board includes two former Barack Obama ambassadors, Max Baucus and J. Adam Early, as well as former Amalgamated Bank CEO Keith Mestrich. Shortly after Manette launched Rose Lake Capital, Omar formed the U.S. Africa Policy Working Group, where Omar leads a group of 20 members of Congress committed to building partnerships with the continent of Africa. Since then, both Omar and Manette, husband and wife, have been pictured at events hosted by the group, a company that helps facilitate international investments in Africa. Got that? Omar was the key speaker at the event where African leaders and partners forum in 2023, where she advocated for U.S. investment in Africa, called on Congress to institute policies including, quote, a $44 billion lifeline for African communities. Now, during that same forum, Haler, in his capacity as Rose Lake CEO, facilitated a panel discussion on the challenges faced by investors seeking to get their funds out of African countries. This is such a scam. This is such a disgusting scam happening right in front of our eyes. The Washington Free Beacon has laid it out. And really, I am not kidding. The Public Integrity Section of the Criminal Division of the Department of Justice should be taking this up. Absolutely 100%. Rose Lake Capital is Manette and Haler's second venture capital firm. Their first used to state on its website that it managed investment funds dedicated to Africa and cannabis. Before Manette left the first firm in 2022, he and Haler formed a subsidiary called Badlands Ventures to facilitate the firm's marijuana investments. What is with this marijuana stuff? Boehner is a lobbyist for cannabis. And what is with these political head cases? Oh, yes. Badlands, in turn, received $3.5 million from a pair of South Dakota cannabis companies in early 2022, who later filed suit alleging the firm diverted $1.7 million of their investment for purposes other than Badlands Ventures business. Folks, you would think with this trail and this sudden immense wealth that a criminal investigation would have been opened already. When the cannabis investors demanded that money back, Haler claimed the Office of Foreign Assets Control had placed a hold on the funds, the lawsuit stated, and it goes on. Of course, they settled that suit for $1.2 million. The outlet reported, the Minnesota Reformer, that it's unclear how Haler was able to pay the settlement, noting court documents that showed he had less than $750 in the bank. Okay, less than $750 in the bank. Omar reports that she and her husband are worth between $6 and $30 million. Last year, they barely had 2 nickels to rub together. Okay, that's enough already. That's enough of this fraud, this Islamist, Marxist fraud. That's enough! Right in front of our eyes. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Conservatives in every stage of life are faced with ever-increasing challenges to our values in the classroom, on campus, and at work. Prepare yourself with a solid understanding of our nation's founding principles in today's most important public policy debates. The Heritage Foundation created the Heritage Academy to help ensure that every conservative from any walk of life has the foundation and the tools needed to defend their values. This 8-week online fellowship includes policy lectures on the most pressing issues facing Americans today, live Q&As to learn from top experts in the conservative movement, and opportunities to connect with other conservatives around the country. Without conservatives grounded in truth and informed on the state of our nation, America as we know it cannot survive. So please go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin, and learn more about the Heritage Academy and how you can apply. That's heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Heritage Foundation. I want to thank all of you for purchasing On Power, week 5 on the New York Times bestseller list, number 2 this week, but the 5th week in a row. I cannot thank you enough, and I hope you're enjoying the book and learning from the book, and most importantly, spreading the word that's in the book and using the book to help defend our country and make sense of what's going on, so people know how to fight what's taking place. I mean, this Ilhan Omar stuff is, you got these clowns, including some of the Republicans in the House, keep talking about Epstein. Why don't they open an ethics investigation in the House Ethics Committee right now? Ilhan Omar and her husband. How do you go from nothing to almost, what was it, $30 million? All these lawsuits mysteriously settled. I mean, we the people have a right to know. Doesn't the House of Representatives... The House of Representatives have to have some level of self-respect here. She needs to be investigated. All right, we got tons more. We'll be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Well, I want to draw your attention, if you're a Democrat, if you're in the media, if you're an Islamist or an isolationist, if you're a Marxist or just a Jew hater, I am posting, as I speak, on all my social sites, video for you, 1 minute, 41 seconds, of Hamas terrorists torturing and beating Gazan civilians at a market with sticks and iron bars simply because they took food without Hamas's approval. Why doesn't the international media ever share this? Will this be on any cable news program? Will it? Will this be on any Sunday program? Will it? If the shoe were on the other foot, you better believe it would be. Isn't this worth watching? I think it is. And I'm posting it for you because who else will if I don't? Oh, here's another story that was not reported by any major news outlet, network, cable, the Slimes, the Compost, any of them. Any of them. You have to go to the Jerusalem Post, and it's not even a Jerusalem Post study. New study debunks Gaza genocide claims, finds flaws in UN international reporting on the war. Wow, now you would think that's important, wouldn't you? You would think the upcoming Sunday shows are all prepared, sharpening their teeth, right? Narratives about Israel committing genocide, war crimes, and a deliberate mass starvation in an ongoing war in Gaza have been challenged and in some cases debunked in a comprehensive study published on Wednesday titled Debunking the Genocide Allegations, a re-examination of the Israel-Hamas War 2023 to 2025. The study, published by the Begin Sadat Center for Strategic Studies and the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, engaged in a critical analysis to challenge the narrative of Israeli genocide during the conflict by analyzing humanitarian reporting and casualty data. Please don't let the facts get in the way. Spanning 311 pages, the study also used quantitative analysis and forensic documentation, oh, that's too confusing, to examine and contest widely reported claims from international organizations and courts. Now, wouldn't you be interested in this if you just did a story saying that the Jews are committing genocide? Don't you think Tlaib and her ilk at the People's Conference of Marxists, Islamists, and other monsters would want to know this? Led by Professor Danny Orbach, the authors said their objective was to provide a factual analysis rather than a legal or moral exoneration. The publication of the study arrives at a crucial time as the IDF is poised to begin the Gideon's Chariots 2 invasion of Gaza City. And as the International Association of Genocide Scholars, now I read to you last night what a whistleblower said, what a setup, what a bunch of phony fraud freaks that is. Adopted a resolution on Monday which says the Israeli military actions in Gaza Strip meet the legal definition of genocide. Divided into 8 chapters, each section of the study addressed specific allegations and themes related to the conflict and its reporting. The overarching themes, yes, that emerged from the research were a critique of humanitarian reporting, a reevaluation of casualty data, and he called for a new methodological framework for analyzing conflicts. Perhaps the study's most controversial finding, they write, concerns food supply in Gaza. The researchers said that more food entered Gaza during the war than before the war. Hello! More food entered Gaza during the war than before October 7, 2023. A claim that starkly contradicts widespread reports of imminent famine and deliberate starvation of the Gazan population on Israel's part. Now, maybe somebody ought to look at that video that I just posted. According to the study, the frequently cited requirement of 508 trucks entering Gaza daily stems from what the authors called a misrepresentation by UN bodies. They point to pre-war UN records showing an average of only 73 food trucks per day in 2022. The 500 figure has been regularly cited throughout the war by the UN, as well as international media outlets such as CNN, The Guardian, and The Washington Post. Well, aren't they all swell reporting mechanisms? Until October 17, 2025, GOGAT, the Israeli Defense Ministry's military body coordinating activities in the territories, recorded on average 101 food trucks daily, while retroactively corrected but incomplete UNRWA data indicated 83 food trucks daily. In a similar vein, the study said the food that entered Gaza during the ceasefire should have sufficed until late July 2025, according to the UN World Food Programme's projections. The researchers attributed the gap between projected sufficiency and reported shortage to, let's guess, quote, extensive looting by Hamas. You know, Hamas, the terrorist group supported by CARE, the terrorist group supported by Tlaib and Omar, the terrorist group supported by Students for Justice in Palestine, isn't that funny, and the Marxists. They also disputed claims regarding Gaza's agricultural self-sufficiency, contrary to allegations that 44% of Gaza's food comes from local agriculture, the study said. This figure was absolutely baseless. The academics calculated that Gaza's agriculture likely accounted for no more than 12% of caloric consumption in 2005. Yes. Goes on. Let's see here. I'm just trying to cut through some of it. What's more, stick with me. The authors also made the point to strongly criticize the decision to stop aid to Gaza, which the Israelis had done to pressure the release of hostages. Further, the study took aim at casualty figures reported by the Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry, alleging systematic data manipulation. Now, this is like the fifth report that's done that. And yet, CNN, MSNBC, the kooks in Congress and the rest, they keep using it. Because why? Because it promotes their narrative. According to the researchers, the health ministry, per Hamas's directives, categorizes all deaths as civilian deaths. That, the analysts found, significantly skewed international reporting. For their indications, the ministry's lists included age-related natural deaths, particularly women, while failing to indicate combat-aged men who were killed. This selective reporting, they argued, artificially inflates civilian casualty figures and obscures the actual... Now, this has been proven before, but it's ignored. As of March 2025, the Gaza Health Ministry had reported over 50,000 combat-related casualties. The study noted the number of reported widows at nearly 14,000, almost matched the official excess male mortality figure of nearly 14,000 for ages 18 to 59, which it found striking. So they're saying 14,000 women died of natural causes. Age. Moreover, the authors presented data suggesting that evacuation zones designed by the IDF were significantly safer than other areas. According to their partial data analysis, less than 4% of deaths occurred in these areas. They attributed higher casualties elsewhere to the failure of the UN to cooperate with the establishment of such zones. A substantial portion of the study focused on what authors described as systematic failures of UN and non-governmental organization NGO reporting. They identified patterns of circular citation, opaque assessments, and unannounced retroactive corrections that the researchers said have distorted the international understanding of the conflict. One example they highlighted involves UNRWA, again the UN. Their truck count discrepancies. While UNRWA initially reported a 70% drop in aid after May 2024 and the Rafah operation, the agency, quote, later retroactively corrected these reports. But they didn't tell anybody. Crucially, the authors noted this correction was effectively unannounced, and hence the supposed aid drop continues to be broadly cited. That is, the old figures. Separately, the study drew parallels to past conflicts, noting a precedent and flawed reporting from the 2008-2009 Gaza war. They cited former UN jurist Richard Goldstone, who led the UN fact-finding mission on the Gaza conflict and later expressed regret over some of his report's conclusions. In a 2011 Washington Post op-ed, Goldstone wrote, "If I had known then what I know now, the Goldstone report would have been a different document." Because he took the phony data from Hamas. The study extended its analysis beyond Gaza as well, examining similar patterns in Iraq during the UN Security Council's 1990 sanctions regime. Per the authors, claims of hundreds of thousands of child deaths due to sanctions based on Iraqi government data were later revealed to be fabricated by the Iraqi authorities. Introducing a new theoretical concept called humanitarian bias, the report used this term to characterize what the authors perceived as systematic errors in conflict reporting. They define this as a tendency among aid organizations to accept alarming claims from stakeholders in order to mobilize urgent action. Commensurate with the researchers, this is a bias that creates a feedback loop where factual corrections are often met with hostility or ignored altogether. And that's what you're seeing right now, because this report will be ignored by everyone but me. They added that even when myths are definitively disproven, quote, corrections are rarely incorporated into public or academic understandings. An acute example of this theoretical concept, the study continued, can be seen when the UN aid chief Tom Fletcher falsely stated in May 2025 that some 14,000 Gazan babies could die within the next 48 hours unless aid reached them. Quote, aid has not reached the communities it needs to reach. This is baby food, baby nutrition. There are 14,000 babies who will die in the next 48 hours unless we can reach them, Fletcher told the BBC. Now, when pressed on how he came to this figure, he assured the interviewer the UN had strong teams on the ground formulating these assessments. 2 days later, the United Nations retracted his statement, with officials downplaying the original time frame of the dire situation. The study also mentioned that humanitarian bias can be particularly damaging when it prevents a realistic assessment of the root causes of conflict and humanitarian crises, such as the actions of non-state actors. That's these non-governmental organizations. And it goes on. This is a fantastic report, which will be utterly ignored because it undermines the narrative of genocide and famine being committed by the Israelis. It undermines the radical Marxists, Islamists, and Jew haters, whether they be the fake MAGA isolationists, whether they be Marjorie Taylor Greene, whether they be Hamas supporting Tlaib and Omar, and Bernie Sanders, and the other Marxists, even though it gives the lie to their claims. This report will not be noted in Mediaite, Dan Abrams' organization, unless they hear me mentioning it and choose to report it and pretend to prove me wrong, but they haven't reported it yet. Neither is the Drudge Report. Nobody. And it goes on. So, I don't know. Did I post this yet, Mr. Producer? I'll post it. We'll take our break now. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
When was the last time you bragged about your wireless company? Like, did you know my wireless company gave away 1,000 American flags to deserving vets and forgave $10 million in veteran debt? Did you know my wireless company raised almost $500,000 to help prevent veteran suicide? In other words, when your wireless company is Pure Talk, there's a whole lot to brag about. You can even brag about the coverage you get with Pure Talk, a 5G network that is insanely fast, dependable, and secure. And you can definitely brag about how much money you save with Pure Talk. Unlimited talk, text, plenty of data. Just $25 a month, saving the average family over $1,000 a year. It's time to switch to my favorite wireless company, Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Levin and save an additional 50% off your first month. Again, puretalk.com/LEVIN. Make the switch today. Pure Talk, wireless worth bragging about. You know, ladies and gentlemen, you can believe whatever I tell you. I give you the source of the information. I spend time discussing it with you. You can believe whatever I write. I give you the end notes. Doesn't mean you agree with what I'm saying, but you can believe it. factually, historically, economically. I just read details of a report to you that gives the complete line. It's not the first. I've read from 3 different reports, but this is the latest. To the famine and genocide, quote unquote, that's taking place in Gaza. Of course, war is a horrible thing and people do die. But I'm not talking about that. And it will be reported virtually nowhere else, including in conservative media, by conservative hosts, broadcast media, or website newspapers. It won't be reported by left-wing sites. Absolutely not. It won't be used on any of the Sunday shows unless I choose to use it on the weekend. It's very important to understand. The media you hate and don't trust, you should continue to hate and not trust. They hide behind the First Amendment, but they despise it. They despise the truth. They despise objective news. They despise it. When we return, our friend Ben Shapiro, Lions and Scavengers, the true story of America. This is a fascinating book. It is a fantastic book. And this book relates to events that are taking place today. And that's the import of a book like this. History, philosophy, real stuff that links to current day, present day events. We'll be right back. When was the last time you bragged about your wireless company? Like, did you know my wireless company gave away 1,000 American flags to deserving vets and forgave $10 million in veteran debt? Did you know my wireless company raised almost $500,000 to help prevent veteran suicide? In other words, when your wireless company is Pure Talk, there's a whole lot to brag about. You can even brag about the coverage you get with Pure Talk, a 5G network that is insanely fast, dependable, and secure. And you can definitely brag about how much money you save with Pure Talk. Unlimited talk, text, plenty of data. Just $25 a month, saving the average family over $1,000 a year. It's time to switch to my favorite wireless company, Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Levin and save an additional 50% off your first month. Again, puretalk.com/LEVIN. Make the switch today. Pure Talk, wireless worth bragging about.
Mark Levin, the thunder on the right. Call in now, 877-381-3811.
We're here with our friend Ben Shapiro. Ben, how are you, my friend?
Hey, thank God. Doing well. How are you, Mark?
Good, good. Me too. Me too. Ben, as everybody knows, really doesn't need an introduction. One of the great podcasters in the country. One of the top conservative podcasters out there. You've written a great book here, and it's really a very, very interesting book, Lions and Scavengers, The True Story of America. And you use the lion and scavenger analysis. And it really does work. Tell the audience what you mean by a lion and a scavenger and why you decided to use them.
Sure. So lions are people who seek to build, who believe they have a duty in the world. And when they see a problem, they address it and they take primary responsibility for fixing it. They're the people who are out there fighting on the front lines. They're the people who are building the social fabric. They're the people who are innovators and risk takers. Those are the people who are building things. Then there are the scavengers who don't produce anything themselves and who resent the dominance of the lions. And as failures, largely, they believe that it's their responsibility to tear down everything good, to try and kill the lions, to take domination. And it doesn't matter if everybody suffers as a result. But the most important thing is that the important things in our society be destroyed, that they be laid low. And there's a coalition of scavengers right now threatening the West, and you can see it on college campuses. You can see it in these giant pro-Hamas marches in London. You can see it in the BLM defund the police marches. It really does threaten all of our civilization from the inside.
So the lions are patriots, and the scavengers are these phony revolutionaries, whether they be Marxists or Islamists or whatever they are. And what is it about the lions who are so strong, so optimistic, builders, developers, as you say, taking on the problems? What is it about them, and you indicate this in your book too, that at times makes them vulnerable to the scavengers?
So I think one of the most amazing things about Western civilization is the fact that biblically we're what you call a guilt civilization. We're a civilization where we look internally, we try to find our sins, and then to make reparation for those sins. This is what repentance is all about. This is what good people do in a Western society. The scavengers are representatives of what we would call shame cultures. These are cultures where it's very important to make other people lose face and never to lose face yourself. So what lions do when they are confronted with a flaw is they immediately admit the flaw, and this is seen as a good thing. The problem is that the scavengers are waiting. They're waiting to pounce and to claw at the neck of the lions when the lions say, yes, I've made a mistake. And this is why there's this bizarre dynamic that has emerged across the West where lions, powerful civilizations will say, sure, we sinned when we did this and we're very sorry for that and we want to fix that. And people will use that as an excuse to tear down the entire civilization. So they'll say, yes, slavery was bad, but America was founded in freedom. And the scavenger will say, well, you said slavery was bad because America was founded on slavery. And actually, you are a beneficiary of slavery, and all of America is built on slavery. So the very fact that the lions wish to correct the problem and acknowledge guilt is used by the shame-seeking scavengers to destroy them.
It is a really great point. When we played a clip or saw a clip of Talib on Labor Day going on and on about how the United States was founded in genocide and slavery. Exactly the type of person you're talking about, isn't it? Yes, exactly. And you saw this at this insane, ridiculous anti-American summit in Detroit. It was people who I call barbarians in the book. The scavengers are really three groups: the barbarians, looters, and lechers. Barbarians are people from the outside who say that America is responsible for all the world's sins, for suffering and terrible things all over the world. And they come to our civilization. They live high on the hog and talk about how terrible it is. It's like Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, and company. And you have the looters, who are essentially Marxists, people who believe that success is an indicator of exploitation and that people who are rich need to be torn down to the ground. And more importantly, private property and free markets have to be torn down. And then there are the lechers, people who believe that their personal proclivities have to take precedence over family and church. Well, what you see in people like Tlaib is this outsider mentality about America, that America is uniquely terrible, uniquely awful, uniquely evil, and therefore it ought to be laid low. And they say it out loud, knowing that many lions are too weak or too cowardly or just, frankly, too spineless to stand up on their hind legs and say, no, you do not get to label our civilization that way. You are the great beneficiaries of the greatest civilization in human history. Let me ask you this. What do you make, you and I deal with Republicans or so-called conservatives who always want to cut deals with these people, who are really trying to undermine those who are on the front lines. I understand this, there's sins and mistakes, and they want to make them right. But when they look at history, even modern history, do they recognize that these scavengers are out to destroy them?
I don't think they do. I think that they are operating, many of them, to try and, steel man them. I think many of them are operating from an old premise, which was that people on the other side of the aisle are not actually scavengers. They're just people who disagree with you. And I think that's wrong. I think that the apologetic nature of many Republicans, many conservatives, has led them to this bizarre belief that if they show that they are sorry for things that they've done, that somehow this will allow for agreement or conciliation. And that's not what's being sought at all. One of the things I talk about in the book is this group chat that I've been a part of that has an enormous number of very, very rich and powerful people on it. And during the last election cycle, one of the things that came up was this idea of the marginal tax rate. And there was a bunch of billionaires on there saying, well, I'd be willing to give up this and I'd be willing to give up more. And really, we should give up more. And one of the things I said to them is, well, you understand that no matter how much you give up, that is not the goal. The goal is not for you to pay a slightly higher marginal tax rate. The goal is to destroy you. I mean, Bernie Sanders is saying this out loud. Kamala Harris has said similar things. What exactly is it that you're doing here? But this sort of misbegotten guilt complex, again, leaves lions and people who normally are innovative and risk-taking and building vulnerable to their own stupidity.
This book is fantastic by Ben Shapiro. All his books are Lions and Scavengers, The True Story of America. Who's winning right now, the lions or the scavengers?
I think that the lions are winning. I think that the last election cycle was proof of that, but I think it can be lost at any moment. And I also think one of the things I talk about in the book is the idea that in every human heart, there's a lion and a scavenger. This is like an individual battle that we all have to fight every day because we all have problems in our life. Do we decide to get up and try and solve those problems ourselves, or do we blame systems, shadowy conspiracies that lie behind the scenes? And so things can turn very quickly. And we do live in a time with social media and a lot of corrupt politicians that the grievance mongering can really overtake the optimism, innovation, and upward-looking mobility that really characterizes Americanism. They turn away from the American dream toward this vast and ugly pessimism that says that no matter how hard you try, you're always going to fail. I think that mentality is spreading like wildfire on the left. I think it's really taken over nearly the entire left. I also think there's a corner of the right that has adopted a lot of these same tactics and these sort of grievance-based coalitional political positions. And if that grows on the right as well as the left, then that really does spell kind of the end of the country.
You call this in the book on page 139, which is how far I got yesterday when I got the book, and I underlined it, a reactionary manosphere. Conspiracy theories has emerged on the right to match the transgressive lechery of the left. That's your point, isn't it?
Yes. I mean, in that particular section, I'm talking about the sort of Andrew Tate right that doesn't make the argument that men should be men or should be traditionally masculine, defending, protecting, taking care of family, building, that men are actually best served if they treat women like trash, if they act like irresponsible teenagers, that there's nothing to be done for it anyway. Basically, all of society is corrupt, so you may as well harm as many people as possible in the name of your aggressive instinct. And that certainly exists on the very online right. And I think you see it politically in part of the political right that basically argues that there's some sort of shadowy conspiracy theory that lies behind our foreign policy or lies behind our economic policy or that's manipulating President Trump. It's a bunch of horse crap. And the people who are preaching it are saying something no different than you would hear out of the mouth of an AOC or Rashida Tlaib.
Mm-hmm. It is they who want Trump to be what they are, and Trump doesn't want to be and is not what they are. The book is Lions and Scavengers, The True Story of America. You can get it on Amazon.com right now. It is discounted by 30%, and that's what happens when a new book is hot. They try and move it. It's quantity. Over at Amazon, you can get it in any major bookstore like Barnes & Noble and so forth. As a matter of fact, I was in a Barnes & Noble doing a signing, and I saw your book, which is prominently displayed. It's a great book. What do you make of the fact, and you can apply this to your book, I'm sure, what do you make of the fact, I was thinking about this, the women's groups are utterly silent in the face of Islamism, in the face of what you call this manosphere type of mentality? What is with that?
Well, I think that this is the true benefit of being a scavenger. You don't have to have an actual ideology of a thing you want to build. It's just about getting together with other people to tear something down. So the most obvious example of this is Queers for Palestine. Right? You see people on college campuses who are marching in solidarity with Hamas who would immediately be thrown off the top of a building in the Gaza Strip. And everybody is sort of bewildered by this. How could this be? Why are feminists marching in solidarity with radical Muslims? And the answer is they have nothing in common except one thing, which is they really, really hate the civilization. They believe that our civilization is, in the case of feminists, patriarchal and sexist. In the case of Islamists, it is westernized and biblical. In the case of Marxists, it's too free market. And it doesn't matter that there are disagreements between those various groups about pretty much everything. The thing that matters is they can get together under a wide variety of banners and march against the civilization. They can all get together to tear away at the thing. They don't want to build anything. The whole goal is to just rip down. And if you just want to rip things down, it really doesn't matter who shows up to the riot as long as somebody brings an axe and somebody brings a match.
This is such a great book, folks. I'm telling you, Lions and Scavengers, The True Story of America. And it's not just an explanation of what's going on. You're encouraging people to be lions, right?
Well, that's really the key. The key is that we can all do this in our personal life, right? We can all make decisions on a day-to-day level in which we take more responsibility, in which we look at the problems in our lives and make the decision to be active in our own lives, in which we forcibly fight the instinct in all of us to buy into this kind of giant conspiracy theory in which we are a victim. And one of the metaphors that I use in the book and that I talk about a lot is the Cain and Abel story from Genesis. The basic story of Cain and Abel is very simple. Cain makes a sacrifice, Abel makes a sacrifice, God accepts Abel's sacrifice, he rejects Cain's. And then what comes next is that God tells Cain, he gives him a sort of picker-upper speech. He says, sin is at your door. Sin crouches at your door, but you can overcome it. Right? You can learn from Abel, or you can do something truly terrible. And Cain makes a decision to blame Abel for his own problem. Instead of trying to fix it, he decides that he's going to blame Abel. He kills Abel. And of course, then he has to go into exile. But the point that the Bible is making there is that in a God-centered or rational or understandable universe, acting well makes your life better. Acting poorly makes your life worse. And you can blame it on whoever you want. But, the things that require doing are going to require doing whether you do them or not. And if you just choose not to do them and instead you choose this kind of quixotic quest to tear down the very things that have made us all prosperous and free, well, you're going to end up with a much, much worse world. And your life is not going to be any better in the process.
And you spend a lot of time in the book weaving God and morality and family throughout the book, don't you?
I think it's the most important thing because, again, I think that in order for us all to truly be lions, we have to acknowledge that there is an order to the universe. And whether we do that consciously or unconsciously, we act in the universe in that way. We act in the world as though there is a cause and effect. We act in a way that suggests that we have free will and that our choices actually matter. And so making sure that that's true, believing that's true, that there is a moral, there is a right and wrong, that we're not relativists, that lies at the core of everything. And if you turn into a relativist, then in the end, what you're really doing is leveling everything.
You're going to love this book, folks. I love it. I just got it yesterday, and I started plowing through it very, very quickly. It's a very easy read, and yet it's filled with very important information and ideas that I think you're going to really appreciate. It's called Lions and Scavengers, The True Story of America. You can get it at Amazon.com right now, 30% off. I encourage you to do it. Last question, Ben. What caused you to write this book? I get this question all the time. What was it? Is this something you've been thinking about over time or what?
I mean, this book was different for me. Usually I come up with sort of a concept for a book, and then I research it, and then I write it in a fairly short period of time. This one was written over the course of a couple of years, and so there really are almost these travelogue entries where I'm writing from different times in different places. The real initiating event was right after October 7th. I went to do a debate at Oxford University over in Britain, and I was told by my security team I couldn't stay in London because it was too dangerous because of all the pro-Hamas protests. And as I was at Oxford University, one of the great historic institutions of the West, blocks away from where Richard Lionheart was crowned and a history university that goes back 1,000 years, I was recognizing that the people who were yelling at me outside and inside in a fairly dangerous way were screaming on behalf of the belief that this institution, which they were attending and which they were enjoying the beneficence of, that institution ought to be torn to the ground, and that the things it stands for ought to be torn to the ground. And this really, created such enormous, upset and angst that I felt I really had to sit with it and write about it and try and condense what it was that was happening into, something simple to digest and understand and internalize.
Well, we have to leave. We could have done this for hours, you and I. I think the audience would have enjoyed it, too. The book is Lions and Scavengers, The True Story of America. You're going to love this book. You can get it on Amazon.com. It'll show up tomorrow. Any major bookstore, Barnes & Noble, all the rest of them. I want to congratulate you. Great book, my friend.
Thank you so much, as always, Mark.
All right, you take care of yourself. It is a great book. You're going to love it. So you can grab his book and my book at the same time. Can you imagine that, Mr. Producer? On Power. And I didn't know he was writing a book. I didn't know it was coming out. And Lions and Scavengers. On Power, Lions and Scavengers. There it is, Amazon.com. Both deeply discounted because they're best-selling books. And I know you and this audience are going to love them. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
When was the last time you bragged about your wireless company? Like, did you know my wireless company gave away 1,000 American flags to deserving vets and forgave $10 million in veteran debt? Did you know my wireless company raised almost $500,000 to help prevent veteran suicide? In other words, when your wireless company is Pure Talk, there's a whole lot to brag about. You can even brag about the coverage you get with Pure Talk, a 5G network that is insanely fast, dependable, and secure. And you can definitely brag about how much money you save with Pure Talk. Unlimited talk, text, plenty of data. Just $25 a month, saving the average family over $1,000 a year. It's time to switch to my favorite wireless company, Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Levin and save an additional 50% off your first month. Again, puretalk.com/LEVIN. Make the switch today. Pure Talk, wireless worth bragging about. I want to thank you all. On Power remains on the New York Times bestseller list, 5th week in a row. Grab your copy and get Ben's book, too.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Aren't I a nice guy, Mr. Producer? I'm bringing authors on, many of whom are competing on the New York Times bestseller list with me, but it doesn't bother me if they're friends and their books are excellent. Or other authors who never promoted my book, and it doesn't bother me either, because I have a big enough platform or platforms. So that should tell you, when I bring an author on and they have a book, it's an author and a book that I believe in. And that certainly is the case with Ben Shapiro and his book, Lions and Scavengers, The True Story of America. And again, I want to thank you folks in this audience. On Power is on the New York Times bestseller list 5 weeks in a row. And its inaugural release, it was number 1 in the nonfiction category. Today it is number 2. Again, thanks to you. And those of you who haven't acquired a copy, I hope you'll rethink it. I hope you'll grab your copy now. It is very nicely discounted at Amazon.com, as it is at Barnes & Noble, and Costco. Certain Costcos carry books, some don't. They've got a nice inventory. Sam's Club, many of the other retailers as well. So it's ubiquitous. It's at the airports, at Hudson and other bookstores along the airports and railroad stations and so forth and so on. But it wouldn't be doing this well but for you, those of you who are actually jumping in. You know, in my interview with Ben just now, he's talking about lions and scavengers and talking about we being the lions. We need to be the people who promote this society, who continue the great advancements, who engage the scavengers, who do not allow them to destroy what has been built before us and what we are building now. That's a very, very important message. I also think the message in my book on how power determines in so many ways whether you live a happy life, a free life, a fulfilling life, a moral life, or not. In its application to government, which has become such a everyday presence in our life. It wasn't supposed to be, but it is. And what's frightening, and yet what should really get your anger up, is when you hear people screaming at the top of their lungs about what a rotten country it is, what an unjust society is, how it was founded on slavery and genocide. Many of these people have contributed nothing to the country. Many of these people are first or second or third generation immigrants to the country. Not all, for sure. We have some great immigrants, too. And also homegrown. A lot of young people who've never contributed anything to anything. And they think they know everything because they had a professor who was very influential. And they all talk the same. They all talk like true believers, brainwashed, ideological, defending the wrong things, promoting the wrong things, and attacking the wrong things. And we hear that and we see this constantly now. So it's very important that the vast majority of the American people who love this country understand that we're up against something we've never been up against before. A true rot, a cancer, a poison from within that seeks to destroy the entire society. The entire society, which we are blessed to live in. It always shocks me that when people come here, particularly from the Middle East, Islamists, how they attack our country. Because it's not more like their country or their ideology. And you have to wonder, well, why do they come here? Because they're liars. Because they escape the hellhole from which they left. And because of freedom and freedom of speech in this country, they feel they can say anything and virtually do anything. And we have a coming together of what one of these buffoons said on Monday, of struggles, the collection of struggles. Struggles against what? If you're a Democrat, and you're a Democrat because you're a union member, you're a Democrat because you believe in these, in certain things in terms of policy and so forth, you better wake up, because these people claim to be in your party or are taking over your party, and they're not patriotic like you. They're not. They want to destroy your party, and they want to destroy you, and they want to destroy this society. Union, non-union, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. People need to wake up to this fact that within your tent, the Democrat Party tent, the Democrat Party is not just allowing this cancer to metastasize within the Democrat Party, it's encouraging it, because they think it'll lead to power politics, elections, and so forth and so on. And they're importing more and more people like this. And they're defending universities and colleges that promote this, as are their judges. As are their judges. Now, here we have a case. Let's see here if I can find it. The blocking of President Trump's attempt to freeze more than $2 billion in Harvard funds. A U.S. judge in Boston, one judge, blocked the Trump administration's attempt to terminate roughly $2.2 billion in federal research funding for Harvard, marking a major victory for the nation's oldest college. This is how they write this up. Major victory for the nation's oldest college, a major defeat for America. Since when does a college have a welfare right to $2.2 billion of your dollars? U.S. District Judge Allison D. Burroughs rejected the Trump administration's assertion that it was attempting to strip Harvard of the billions in federal funding due to allegations of anti-Semitism, or the university's failure to comply with the recommendations of a federal anti-Semitism task force. She wrote, a review of the administrative record makes it difficult to conclude anything other than defendants used anti-Semitism as a smokescreen for a targeted, ideologically motivated assault on this country's premier universities. You see? What a bunch of BS that judge is filled with. We must fight against anti-Semitism, but we equally need to protect our rights, including our right to free speech, and neither goal should nor needs to be sacrificed on the altar of the other. And we don't need lectures from a federal judge, as if she's the president of Harvard or a left-wing goon Democrat politician. This is a problem. Lawyers for the Trump administration had told Burroughs that they had every right to cancel the funding after Harvard refused to comply with the demands made by a federal anti-Semitism task force, which they sought to frame in court as a mere contract issue. Burroughs is an Obama appointee. An Obama appointee. Anyone surprised? I mean, it's almost predictable that 99% of the time these are Obama, Biden, or Clinton judges. So now the federal government's being told it cannot allow the President of the United States to withhold funds from the executive branch, the universities and colleges. Pretty shocking, don't you think? We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
I look at a state like California, which in my view is the most beautiful of all states, and all the states have great beauty. Don't get me wrong. California's just different. And I think about when Ronald Reagan was governor. I think about when Duke Majan was governor. I think about when Pete Wilson was governor. 3 great, great governors. Then I see how it began to unravel under Schwarzenegger. Now, obviously, Ray Davis came before him, but nonetheless. And then went to hell completely. And today, in many respects, it is hell. If you're a hardworking person trying to make ends meet, you can't afford the gasoline, you can't afford the food, your property taxes are through the roof. The highest income taxes in the country at all levels, among the highest sales taxes. God forbid if you die there, the inheritance tax, everything you've earned and already paid taxes on. If you're a farmer, you're constantly fighting the water police. Constantly. If you're a small businessman, small businesswoman, you can't make ends meet. The minimum wage is preposterous. It's not based on economics. It's based on left-wing politics. The state is loaded with illegal aliens from all over the globe, but particularly south of the border. Massive. Hence, car insurance rates are through the roof if you can get them. Crime is through the roof. They'll tell you, oh, it's coming down. Listen, crime is crime. Crime is crime. So you take the most beautiful state in America, which was once the most prosperous state in America, and they used it as an experiment and they destroyed it. And now they want to control the country. Does that make sense to you? There's a great site called issuesinsights.com, issuesinsights.com. They write fantastic editorials. They write, care to guess how many of the deadliest cities in the U.S. have a Republican mayor? I want to present some facts to the President of the United States, and I imagine this is alarming to the President to learn these facts, said California Governor Gavin Newsom. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm going through this. And, of course, the vast majority are Democrat-run cities. In one of the endless attempts to grab a headline, California Governor Gavin Newsom last week taunted President Trump, saying if he's serious about fighting crime, he should be sending the National Guard to red states such as Louisiana, which has a murder rate far higher than California. Newsom's attempt to troll the president failed on Sunday when Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem took the attention of starving governor up on his offer. She's fantastic. I don't think she gets enough credit. I really don't. She's fantastic, Kristi Noem. I'm really a big fan. Absolutely, she said on Deface the Nation when asked if the Trump administration would send National Guard troops into cities or states run by Republicans. Every single city is evaluated for what we need to do there to make it safer. But even if Trump were to follow up on this, he'd likely still end up sending National Guard troops almost exclusively into Democrat strongholds. And why is that, America? Because they don't support the cops. They underfund the cops. Their prosecutors don't prosecute. Their judges don't incarcerate. I mean, it's only a matter of logic. Why don't the Democrats take credit for what they've done? Why don't they take credit for the hell that they've loosed on their citizens and their law-abiding citizens? Take credit for it. Take credit for destroying city after city. Take credit for destroying the state of California, which used to be the state. Take credit. Here's some of the facts that might be alarming to the governor of California, and they provide a very significant list. Of the 20 cities with the highest homicide rates in the country, 12 are located in red states, but only one currently has a Republican mayor. And while Shreveport, Louisiana currently has a Republican mayor, Republican has run the city only 11 of the past 152 years. So maybe they've elected the Republican to try and fix the problem. It's been 50 years since Birmingham, Alabama last had a Republican mayor. The last time there was a Republican mayor in St. Louis, Missouri was 1949. Atlanta hasn't had a Republican mayor since 1879. New Orleans hasn't had one since 1872. In Indianapolis, the homicide rate has been elevated ever since Democrats gained control of the mayorship in 2017. From 2010 through 2016, the annual number of homicides in the city averaged around 120. Since then, it's averaged 201. The Republican mayor of Dallas, Eric Johnson, ran twice as a Democrat and switched to the GOP less than 2 years ago. Well, you might ask, what does it matter who the mayor is? The reason it matters is that crime is local, and local law enforcement is what matters. Your public safety as a resident is dramatically impacted by your district attorney, by your police department, by whether the local politicians support and adequately fund the police and prosecutor's office, noted a Heritage Foundation research paper in 2022. Doesn't matter where these cities are located. If Democrats run them, it's more likely than not the residents are stuck with local prosecutors who won't prosecute crimes. Police departments that are understaffed and demoralized. Criminals who, if they're caught at all, get released on cashless bail. And political machines that keep these Democrats in power decade after miserable decade. Dallas Mayor Johnson said it best when he switched to the Republican Party. He said the future of America's great urban centers depends on the willingness of the nation's mayors to champion law and order and practice fiscal conservatism. Our cities desperately need the genuine commitment to these principles as opposed to the inconsistent poll-driven commitment of many Democrats that has long been a defining characteristic of their party. These are the facts, Gavin. They are indeed alarming. They are an alarming indictment of those who for far too long have maintained an iron grip on our great cities. And they have a correction, or an update, I should say, at the bottom where they updated their list, if you want to go look at the piece. We have all these articles that I cite, all these opinion pieces that I cite on the mothership, marklevinshow.com, on our website. And they are there for you to check. We also have about 4 years' worth of the radio program, going back 4 years or so, archived there, too, if you want to check. The radical kooks on the left always go there. They try and catch me in something or another, and they never do. They're just stupid. They have stupid headlines, stupid business plans, stupid mission, and they're all left-wing kooks. That's what they are. Like the entrails, media okerite, the Drudge Report. Matt Drudge appears to have had a head accident. I'll be right back.
The Constitution Man, Mark Levin. Call him now at 877-381-3811.
All right, I think we're going to jump into the gene pool here, which has been very, very good over the last many shows, I might add. Let us go to Holly, Morgantown, West Virginia, on the Mark Levin app. Holly, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? I'm so happy to talk to you.
Thank you.
I think you're the smartest person I know, even though I don't know you.
First of all, I don't know that I am the smartest, but secondly, you're very sweet. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, when you mentioned Ilhan Omar wanting to give Africa billions of dollars, the first thing that jumped into my head was that those actions would emulate the Clintons' humanitarian efforts in Haiti, and it's a great way for her to make more money.
Well, that's a great point, because that went nowhere. Wasted an enormous amount of money in a violent, brutal, bloodthirsty, murderous gang now runs Haiti, despite all the billions that have poured into that country.
Yep.
But it is amazing, is it not, how wealthy she and her husband have become, and then she's promoting funding for these areas of the world where her husband has an opportunity to make another fortune. I mean, that's unbelievable to me that she's not being investigated by the House Ethics Committee or the Public Integrity Section of the Criminal Division of the Department of Justice.
Maybe we can get her to be investigated.
Well, I'm hoping by my making these comments publicly, because these people do listen to the program, that they understand what she and her husband appear to be up to. I mean, I don't know how you go to worth a few $1,000s to up to $30 million, and she's confessed in her own filings. $6 to $30 million, $6 million to $30 million, when prior to that it was a few $1,000s and constant lawsuits. I mean, how is that possible unless you have connections and all the rest of it? It's not, is it?
No, I agree with you completely. And
a 3,500% increase in 1 year, 3,500% makes Pelosi look like a pauper.
Yeah, well, she must be one of the 1% now that she complains about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. These Marxists,
lucky her.
Just like Bernie Sanders. Notice he used to talk about millionaires and billionaires. Now he only talks about billionaires because he's a multimillionaire. It's sickening. And, of course, the media give them cover.
Yeah,
well, I want to thank you, Holly. Morgantown's actually a very nice town. I've been there. I love West Virginia, actually. A lot of people are moving from Virginia and other states to West Virginia because of the quality of life there, aren't they?
I don't know, but it is nice here.
Yeah, you don't want too many moving in. All right. Thank you, Holly. God bless you, my friend. Let's go to Brett, Sacramento, California, the great KSFO. Brett, how are you?
Good afternoon. Good evening, Mark. It's quite a pleasure and an honor to speak with you.
Likewise. Thank you.
Thank you. From the land of fruits and nuts and unfortunately lots of fool's gold.
Yep.
The Bible talks about Ophir gold, and I had a pastor that would talk about, the value of having our testings in fire in gold. She actually taught a Bible study with Governor Reagan when Reagan was governor. And along those lines, my grandmother, a wonderful saint, she lived to be 100 years old.
Wow.
She knew Edwin Meese and met Edwin Meese at a reunion. Army Corps of Engineer reunion. And she used to go in memory of my grandfather. And Edwin didn't know my grandfather, I don't think, but Edwin actually, Mr. Meese, the honorary Mr. Meese actually had dinner, I think, at my grandmother's house, is what I've been told.
Isn't that great?
And
I'm glad you brought him up and his beautiful wife, Ursula, because we definitely owe them a call. And I'm going to do this tomorrow. But anyway, go right ahead.
I would love an update about his health and how he's doing and stuff. And anyway,
I will let the country know.
Along the lines of Reagan, Gorbachev tear down this wall, the wonderful things that he did. What do you think about how much we should have our head on a swivel, or how much that America should have their head on a swivel with what perestroika and what Putin is trying to do by restoring the Soviet Union?
What do help me out here? Perestroika has what to do with Putin trying to restore the Soviet Union?
Isn't perestroika the rebuilding of the USSR as Russia, Mother Russia, or whatever is basically trying to do? Or am I ignorant about that?
No, you're not ignorant about it. Let me look it up and get the actual definition of it. I think I know what it is, but I want to be right about it.
Okay, I worked in Christian TV, and
you actually hold on now. You're actually right. It's about the reconstruction of the Soviet political and economic systems, but that was the reconstruction of the systems under Gorbachev, right?
Okay.
So that would be Putin, who wants to rebuild the economic structure and the systems, but he really doesn't want to do that, because Gorbachev and Putin had nothing in common. And Gorbachev was starting that, it says here, in 1985. Putin is going backwards. Putin wants to amass and enslave these countries that were called, these various nations, 15 captive nations. And he wants to get back to that, starting with one nation at a time. But that was not Gorbachev. He was not interested in accumulating or even retaining these countries, these captive nations. He was interested in building up Mother Russia. And Putin is not really interested in that. Putin's the real imperialist. He's seeking to conquer. He wants to bring back the old Brezhnev Soviet Union. He's KGB, old KGB, and that's who he is. So the perestroika is more about reform, and Putin's not about reform. Hope that makes sense.
We need another miracle on ice. I'm a hockey fan.
Yeah. All right, brother.
Miracle on ice.
All right, well, we may get one. You never know. Maybe the Flyers will win the Stanley Cup one of these days. All right, thank you, my friend. Well, look, they got a great football team. I'm from Philly. I'm a big Eagles fan, big Phillies fan. They're doing great. And 76ers, I used to be a big 76ers fan. I don't follow basketball as closely as I used to. It just bores me. And so many prima donnas. You know, I find there's more prima donnas in professional basketball than in baseball and football and hockey. So it's a turnoff to me. Just a turnoff. And so in any event, that would be the miracle on ice, I think. Bring back the Broad Street Bullies. When I was a kid, that's what I used to watch. Used to go into a little back room in the house, turn on a little black and white TV, Mr. Producer, that was a 13-inch TV. Might have been 11, whatever it was. Had the antenna that I moved around. I was 13 years old, would watch the hockey games. It was kind of new to us. You know, hockey, never really watched hockey, but I started to watch it, really liked it, and the Broad Street Bullies in the mid-'70s, I guess. No, earlier than that, I guess. But in any event, that kind of turned me on to hockey. But they apparently outlawed a lot of what, you know, the Flyers used to do in terms of fighting. I don't know what it is. Like, I'm a UFC fan. Now, you hear all these talk show hosts say they're UFC fans. You got Rogan, the liberal, the lefty. He's obviously a color commentator for UFC, and that's what he's good at, by the way. That's what he's good at. And, but I've been watching UFC. Kilmeade and I had this discussion. You know who the first broadcaster for the UFC for MMA was way back when? Brian Kilmeade. Did you know that, Rich? Yeah. So we were swapping stories when I was in New York at Fox talking about my book. Because I used to watch those. I used to watch them when they put up the chicken wire in the middle of, it was a Nevada, not in the middle of the desert, but sort of outside Henderson or whatever it was. And guys would fight each other. You got a big, fat, 400-pound guy fighting a 180-pound guy. There were very few rules. Very few rules. And I think what attracts me to it is not the blood and guts, but the idea that a man, I can't watch the women. It's just a turnoff to me. I can't watch women breaking other women's nose. It's just not something I like. But watching these guys, I think what it is watching people do something that I could never do or would never do. I've talked about this before. It's like when we were building our home in Virginia over 20 years ago. Every chance I got, I would drive out to the location and watch these guys build the house. I couldn't believe it. How they're climbing onto the roof, the bricklayers, the cement, pouring the cement, evening out the cement, all the specialties with the tile guys, watching the plumbers and the I mean, it fascinated me. It still fascinates me that people actually do things with their brains and their hands that I cannot do. I can't do it. Now, I suppose if I concentrated on it, I could do it, but I can't concentrate on it. And I rely on their expertise. This is why I have the greatest respect for blue-collar workers who do things I cannot do. And they're going to live a lot longer without all the niceties of life than somebody like me. So I'm very impressed with people like this. Very. Or when I get off an airline, I always, if they step out, thank the pilot and the co-pilot. They're doing something I could never do. Could never do it. Even the flight attendants and waiters and waitresses and so forth. I can't do that. Why? Well, it's not that I can't carry it. I have no patience. And if some guy makes a funny look at me because he has 3 ice cubes rather than 2 or something like that, I'm annoyed. I don't know how they keep their cool. I really don't. So I have great respect for people who do things that I either can't do or I won't do. Seriously. Like you, Mr. Producer. I can't do what you do. I don't really even know what the hell you do, to be perfectly honest with you. He's got the board. He's got the... I don't want to know. I got other things I got to think about. But I have a guy who I rely on to make it work. That's all I know. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
See if we can slip another caller in here. Don't have a ton of time. All right. Uh-oh, what the hell did I do? Mr. Producer! Give me a caller, Rich, quickly. Let's go. Ivan, Miramar Beach, our buddy, Florida. We have a little bit of time. Go.
Mark, my friend. Hey, listen, even if you can't do it now, I want you to read Zephaniah chapter 2, verses 1 through 7. It might give you a little bit of, it may explain a little bit of what's going over in Gaza right now. I'll read you go a little bit of it. Gaza shall be forsaken, and Ashkelon a desolation. It says, woe unto the inhabitants of the seacoast. To the Lord.
All right, my brother, we're out of time. I appreciate it. We got the reference. I want to salute all you folks out there. Thank you very, very much. God bless you. And we can do it again tomorrow. See you then.